On the 9th of November 1888, in the quiet district of Spitalfields, London, a crime scene had been uncovered. Number 13 Miller's Court was home to the discovery of the mutilated body of Mary Jane Kelly, said to be the 5th victim of Jack the Ripper.
Well, in 1888, between the 31st of August and the 9th of November, over 71 days, there were 5 prostitutes on the streets of Whitechapel in London who were murdered.
It looks back to the time of Jack the Ripper and proposes that a con man who moved to Australia after the 5th murder was the real Jack the Ripper. I was truly fascinated by what historians and others interviewed had to say about this. The arguments they gave were very compelling, especially the fact that the murders ended after he left for Australia, and how deceitful he was with women, his views on prostitution, and pretending to be a gynecologist. I really enjoyed the black and white video footage of the time period and the illustrations and photos of this man. Excellent spooky soundtrack during the film.
I absolutely loved this. I'm a big true crime fan, definitely, and I thought that this was just such an interesting and well-done narrative. I loved how many interviews and perspectives they were able to get in this, and the use of archived footage was really strong as well, and really just transported the viewer back to, you know, the Jack the Ripper's time and the time that the story took place, which I thought was really great and really grounding. I loved the mixture of photos and drawings in with the footage as well. I thought that was great. And the escalation of the music as the narrative went on really helped to kind of build the tension and suspense as well, which I thought was great. I also found it so interesting that, you know, he was buried with his final wife without so much as a name on his gravestone. And just the fact that, like, despite all the connections they found, they still can't be 100% sure that he even was Jack the Ripper, or if he was just another exceptional con man at the time. Yeah, just really interesting narrative, really well done.
It breaks down the thought process of a serial killer, which is basically someone hell-bent on ridding the world of certain people who they deem as threats to society. So you have prostitutes, homosexuals, disabled, mentally ill, sometimes tend to be the victim. In particular, you know, for Jack Ripper, it was prostitutes. And many have believed the man Walter Perot to have been Jack Ripper, but he was never convicted. Walter Perot has written several pieces about how he believed prostitutes were the root of all evil. And he was also a con man. He conned several single women out of their fortune by pretending to be a man of wealth in which an inheritance never came. And so a lot of people tie them two together, even though there's been no proof that they are in fact the same person. But his views on prostitution and then the choice of the victims for the Jack the Ripper just seem almost too in line. And I would say that both men just seem like women in general were not a fan, because you either kill them or you spend your life conning them out of all their fortunes all the way until his death. And I feel like he's had several marriages to where this occurred. And so it just makes you wonder what else is beneath the surface and what is behind it all, because it has to come from somewhere. What is behind it all that causes a man to get to that point of hating women so much?
I was impressed by how much information was told in only 8 minutes. I thought it was such an interesting subject matter, and the way that it unfolded felt really natural and organic, and the shots all matched exactly interviews and what was being said. I learned so much. Jobs I didn't even know existed were opened up to me, and yeah, it packed a punch, but it didn't feel didactic, or it didn't drag, or it wasn't rushed in any way. It was paced perfectly, and the dialogue was so natural, and the structure worked really well in such a short amount of time. So
it packs a lot into a short time, but not in an overwhelming way. Yeah, really informative. It felt very in-depth, but again, it's with an 8-minute runtime, it doesn't drag on in any way, shape, or form. It was interesting to hear from all the different perspectives. I had no idea a ripperologist was even a thing. I thought maybe that was just a made-up title for the sake of the doc. So all in all, again, it was presented really well, edited really well, and overall just a thoroughly entertaining and informative piece. So great job.
The zoom in on this deranged face is creepy, and I love the use of voiceover. The narrator and historians are insightful. Good use of articles and clippings from history. It shows the war on essentially everything but the white man. There's a market for true crime stories. Obviously, there's memes and plenty of information out there, especially ones as infamous as Jack the Ripper. The Dahmer series just released on Netflix. You receive a ton of information in just a handful of minutes here, which I think is great for when you're doing a character study.
I thought this was a really cool documentary short. I thought it worked really well as just a brief introduction to the Jack the Ripper case, and in particular, this one potential suspect. I did think it was really interesting, some of the tidbits that you delve into that suggest he may have been Jack the Ripper. I particularly thought some of the comments from Professor Flood were really illuminating, and just it was cool to see how he sort of delved into the psychology of serial killers in a way that I hadn't really heard before.